Welcome to Notebook Nuggets. Today we're doing a deep dive into the core ideas of the book, The Obstacle is the Way. We know there's an interest in getting knowledge quickly, but, thoroughly. And this book, well, it offers a really powerful way to look at challenges. Our mission today is basically to unpack its key insights, give you some actionable takeaways, hopefully without it feeling overwhelming. Think of it like putting on a different pair of glasses to view the difficulties you run into.
Absolutely. And it really draws heavily on Stoicism, that ancient philosophy. It's a fantastic toolkit for dealing with adversity. People like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they all emphasized focusing on what we can control, mostly our thoughts, our actions, and finding strength in, navigating the challenges, not just trying to wish them away.
Okay, right. So let's dig into that. The book seems structured around three core things: disciplines, perception, action, and will. Let's start with perception. The big idea here seems to be that how we first see an obstacle matters more than the obstacle itself. It's not just what happens, but how we frame it in our minds. If you see something as just bad, you'll react one way. But if you see it as maybe a chance to learn, well, that changes everything.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating is the Stoic push for objective perception. The book really encourages seeing things clearly, stripping away the immediate gut reactions, the fear, the anger that just cloud things. There's even this practice, negative visualization. Sounds grim, but briefly thinking about bad outcomes can actually make you appreciate right now, and it cushions the blow if bad things do happen. So getting a handle on our perceptions, that's really step one.
The book uses this great analogy about NASA astronauts. Apparently, a huge part of their training is just managing reactions, specifically not panicking. You hear about John Glenn, right? His heart rate barely budged during that orbital flight. It makes you think, if someone in that situation can stay cool, why do we get so spun up about, a tough email or a deadline?
Precisely. Our emotional reactions are often just way out of proportion. Astronauts train rigorously for it, and the point is, we can too. We can train our minds to see things more objectively, respond calmer. It's about creating that little bit of space, that buffer between the event and how we react. Gives you a chance to choose a response, not just feel one.
Yeah, that space seems key. The book also brings up this interesting contrast between post-traumatic growth and PTSD. We hear a lot about the negative side, obviously, but it points out some people actually grow because of awful experiences.
Right. They somehow manage to turn something potentially destructive into fuel for resilience.
It speaks to our adaptability, doesn't it?
It does. The book suggests that power lies right there in that space between event and reaction. If we consciously use that space, get our minds right first, we can often find these unexpected ways to grow, even through really tough stuff.
Okay, so perception shapes the experience. Then the book moves to action. It really hammers home the need to take deliberate steps, even when you really don't want to. It's not about sitting back and waiting. It's about actively, engaging. The book talks about right action being grounded, bold, but also humble and direct.
Yeah, and what's insightful there is the focus on consistent effort, perseverance. It's not about waiting for some flash of inspiration. It reminds me of Edison, 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. And you see this with people like Ulysses S. Grant or Edison himself. All those failures weren't really failures. They were just missteps.
Because they kept going. So practically speaking, what does that mean? It sounds like overcoming stuff often just boils down to hard work. Sticking with it. There's that example of Grant trying to take Vicksburg in the Civil War, setback after setback apparently, but he just kept trying different things, relentless action, and eventually he got there.
Exactly. And the book really underscores that things are rarely going to be perfect. Ideal conditions, forget it. You often just have to work with what you've got right now and keep moving. Amelia Earhart's story is powerful here too. She took what seemed like a lesser role on that first women's transatlantic flight, navigator, no pay. But she saw it as a stepping stone, a way to get in the game. And that first action that, paved the way for her big solo flight later.
Okay, perception, action, and the third discipline is will, our inner strength, resilience. This sounds like digging deep, showing up even when things feel completely overwhelming. It's about cultivating that mental toughness, understanding that challenges can actually help us in the long run.
Yes, this is really about our internal fortitude, our grit. The book talks about acknowledging mortality, accepting that life will throw obstacles at us. It's unavoidable. So instead of blaming things outside, we focus inward, build that inner strength. There's this key concept, amor fati, love of fate, basically embracing everything that happens, good and bad, and using it as fuel.
Wow. Love of fate. That's intense. The book brings up Edison again here, doesn't it? With the factory fire. Late in his life, huge fire destroys tons of his work. And his reaction, it wasn't despair. He tells his son, go get your mother and her friends. They'll never see a fire like this again. Just accepting it. And immediately thinking about rebuilding. That really hits home.
It's such a powerful illustration because external events, often totally out of our control, but our internal response, our will to keep going, that's always ours. There's another incredible story, Admiral James Stockdale, prisoner of war in Vietnam, 7 years, unimaginable hardship. But he kept his inner strength, even became a leader for others there. His experience just perfectly shows that Stoic idea. Our inner resilience is the last resource, no matter what's happening outside.
And that leads into another really intriguing idea. The phrase, what stands in the way becomes the way. It sounds catchy, but it seems to mean something deeper, a real shift in perspective.
It does.
The book uses that old Zen story, right? The king puts a big rock in the road, lots of people just complain, go around it, but one person actually moves it.
And finds gold underneath, with a note saying the obstacle itself held the reward.
Exactly.
It captures the book's main points so well. History is full of people who didn't just get past obstacles. They were fundamentally shaped by them, made stronger. Think of Rockefeller. He saw economic panics not as disasters, but as apprenticeships in difficulty, learning opportunities. And he actually made a lot of money during crises because he kept his cool and saw chances others missed in their panic.
That's a great example. The book also talks about focusing on the process, not just the end goal. Like Nick Saban, the football coach, his whole thing is the process. Focus on this play, this rep, the immediate task. Don't just obsess about winning the championship.
Right. The idea being if you nail the small steps consistently, the big successes tend to follow.
Saban also talks about finishing, seeing things through.
And that focus on process fits perfectly with the Stoic view, doesn't it? Focus on the present action. Break down huge challenges into small, doable bits. If you just concentrate on doing each step well, patiently, you build momentum. It makes tackling the big thing much more likely. It's about dedication to this task right now.
So wrapping this deep dive on the obstacle is the way. The core message seems pretty clear. Inside every obstacle, there's this potential for, well, getting better, an opportunity. It really just depends on how you choose to see it, act on it, and use your will. Think back to that king in the boulder story. The reward was in the obstacle, and Marcus Aurelius' words, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Powerful stuff.
Yeah, we touched on quite a few examples. Rockefeller finding opportunity in panic. Amelia Earhart turning a seemingly raw deal into a big break. Grant just relentlessly pushing forward until he won. And Edison facing that fire, embracing what is and finding the way forward. And don't forget the process, focusing on that immediate step can lead to amazing things.
So thinking about all this, what really stands out to you personally? How might you start using these ideas, perception, action, will, with a challenge you're facing right now? It really is a powerful framework, isn't it? For shifting how you think and taking back some control when things get tough. It encourages being proactive, resilient, because obstacles, well, they're just part of life.
Definitely. We really hope exploring this has given you some valuable nuggets, maybe a new lens for your own challenges. We'd encourage you to think more about these ideas. Consider how you might turn your own obstacles into the way forward. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.